Hi, how are you? My name is Dr. Christopher Amoruso, and welcome to my website and to this installation of Health Talks. Health Talks, if you're not familiar with it, is going to be a 5 or 10 minute talk that I give on my website through video to introduce our approach to different health problems, some of the more common health problems that we see, and where you can get started and basic information on what you need to know. So tonight I want to discuss something that I see quite often, in fact, far too often, which really for many people falls under IBS, but um, things like GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, or what you might call heartburn, gastritis, constipation or chronic constipation varied with time to time with diarrhea, um, gas and bloating. These are the things that I see far too frequently. And oftentimes they're underlying problems that maybe a patient doesn't deem as overly serious, but has been going on for years and years, oftentimes with people I speak to since childhood, and really has gone unaddressed by the patient. Or maybe they've been to their doctor and the only solution they've gotten is a laxative or a recommendation or prescription for an antacid. In most of these cases, and one thing I want to make clear here is that you can't cookie cut. Okay, first of all, a person can have GERD for a completely different reason as another person, but there is an overall theme that runs through these problems, these different categories of gastrointestinal or digestive problems that I think can go a long way to helping all of these people. And the first thing I want to discuss is the standard American diet is by far the biggest thing that I see. And then, of course, stress has a big role in it as well. And then a sedentary lifestyle. Because one thing we don't hear enough about is how movement really does encourage our gastrointestinal system to function. Especially after meals, it's always a good thing to be a little bit active and do some walking or some light activity. Certainly not necessarily any strenuous exercise, but a good walk after a meal always encourages better digestion. But what most people fail to realize is that it's their lifestyle habits, getting up in the morning and having that quick bowl of cereal before they run to the office, or maybe that quick coffee with cream and sugar to get them going until they get to the office where they can have that bagel that's waiting for them or the muffin. And this is something that happens meal after meal, ad nauseum, ad infinitum in most of the patients that I see. And it's perhaps the biggest reason for these problems. And so what I think most people need to understand is that there is a different approach than just band-aiding it with an acid blocking medication or an over-the-counter antacid or even a laxative. These kind of approaches are dangerous. I mean, antacids oftentimes have aluminum in them, or these laxatives can be caustic and irritating to the gut as well. So it's not a good idea to begin with, and certainly it's not even addressing the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem is the damage to the stomach or intestinal lining or the organs of digestion, like the pancreas, the gallbladder, and so forth. So the approach we take in my office is to remember not to cookie cut. First of all, we take a detailed history. That's number one. Number two, we always encourage the patient to share with us in that history the family history of problems, because oftentimes these things can run in families. If your mother had a stomach problem, it's not unlikely that if you lived in the same environment, grew up eating and doing the same things, you too will develop a stomach problem. After that, we look at the spine and we do a complete physical on the patient, including an abdominal exam. And this gives us a lot of insight into what areas of the digestive system are in need of help. Okay, so in some people it might be the pancreas, in others it might be the stomach, and in others it could be several of these things, or even the gallbladder. Whatever the situation is, we try to tailor a protocol and an approach that supports it in 2 or 3 ways. Number one, the diet has to be made easily digestible. It has to be smaller meals, maybe more frequently for a time, to get the patient digesting better and not putting such a load on the system that's already not working well to begin with. And then we use adjuncts like nutritional supplements, for example, digestive enzymes. And we use a company Enzymatica, which makes digestive enzymes for different purposes. So there are some digestive enzymes that are geared more towards protein digestion, and yet others that deal more with fats and helping a patient break down fats. So again, this is tailored to the specific patient. And then we might need to use other anti-inflammatory or gut healing things such as gelatin or bone broth, which has become quite popular and brought more to the forefront in recent years, especially because of the work of Nourishing Traditions and Sally Fallon and the Weston Price Foundation, which I encourage everybody to look at and explore their website. They have wonderful information. And then we can use licorice root and other adjuncts that help with the actual healing process. But ultimately, we've got to get down to the root cause of the problem. And if it's that the patient is rushing out of the house, they're throwing down a bowl of cornflakes with pasteurized, homogenized milk, and then at work, they're just having a quick sandwich from the deli. And then by the time they get home, they're too exhausted to make a meal that's sound in nutrition and is traditional in its ways. So they'll throw that bowl of pasta on the plate, and that's what they're going to eat. And with some general common sense and the use of some of these adjuncts that I mentioned, they can go a long, long way. But one of the things that I like to do with each of my patients is sit down and teach them. And what I do is I teach them about food combining, which helps digestion become easier for them. And food combining is important as a general rule for all of us because it makes the work of the digestive system easier. And then, of course, if we have to get more specific, we do. And this is a generalized, basic approach that most people would go a long way for helping most people. I'm sorry, but I think that the overall theme is getting down to looking in the mirror and asking yourself, what is it that I do poorly and what is it I do well? And in order to know those things, oftentimes you have to work with a health professional that you can trust and you can count on, somebody that is well versed in nutrition, and not just politically correct nutrition that we may read in magazines or on the news at night, but nutrition that our ancestors, that traditional cultures followed. And this includes using foods that are lacto-fermented, for example. Most Americans, I would wager to say, do not or have never have heard of lacto-fermented foods or do not know what they are. And traditional lacto-fermented foods are simply things like, kimchi or sauerkraut or real pickles. And these things can't be bought by these industrial companies that have mass-produced them. These are fermented without the addition of sugar and vinegar and other additives. These things are allowed to ferment by nature, and nature's way is slower. And oftentimes that's not in the interest of some of the bigger companies and for their profit margins. So it's important to work with somebody who knows the difference about these foods, because lacto-fermented foods especially are loaded with probiotics. And probiotics are very important in this day and age because they are the good bacteria that naturally are supposed to be inhabiting our intestinal tract. They're in the mucus linings of most of our body, including a woman's reproductive tract. They're in our mouth. They're a very integral part of our immune system. And I think most people nowadays have heard something about probiotics, but the truth is you can't get the right probiotics from processed industrial foods. You're not going to get them from your store-bought yogurt that's pasteurized and homogenized and has added sugar and added cultures. You're not going to get it from these types of foods because they are not made in the traditional way, and they do not abide by nature's laws. And so that's important to understand, but certainly that is a very, very important aspect of improving digestion and improving overall health. So I encourage you to take a peek on our website and get a look at the book that I helped my father to finish. My father began writing this book on his 50 years of experience about 10 to 12 years ago, shortly before he passed away. And unfortunately, he didn't have a chance to finish it, but by the grace of God, I did, and we've got it out there, and it's available now. And it has a section on digestion, and I encourage anybody with digestive problems, anybody looking to improve their overall health, to read that chapter. I promise you it will help you. It will go a long way to getting you the information you need And if nothing else, it will point you in the direction you need to go. And hopefully you'll be able to find a practitioner, whether it be a medical doctor, a nutritionist, or a chiropractor, or a naturopath, or whomever, that can help you along that path. And certainly the book does give you some of these resources as well, and I think you'll find it very useful. The name of the book is A Legacy of Healing, and it's subtitled The Role of Nutrition, Chiropractic, and Alternative Therapies in Self-Healing. So feel free to pick up a copy of it. You can find it on the link on our website. It's also available through Author House Publishing and Barnes & Noble and Amazon. I hope you enjoyed the talk tonight, and I thank you for stopping by. Feel free to post a comment or leave us your information if you have any further questions. Thank you so much.